So here we are again at Driving.ca having a closer look at some family-friendly three-row SUVs. On this side we have the 4th generation 2020 Toyota Highlander, which has been redesigned for this model year, and it's a consistent, dependable choice for families thanks to its reputation for reliability.
Yeah, and on this side we've got the Kia Telluride, which is all new. It's the 1st generation, but ever since it arrived last year, we've pretty much fallen in love with it. It's got so much going for it in terms of style, driving quality, and practicality. So we wanted to put it up against one of the best as it arrived all new and refreshed for this year.
Absolutely. And before we get into these cars and give them a spin, don't forget to hit that bell button and subscribe so you don't miss any updates from us here at Driving.ca. Should we give it a go?
Yeah, let's drive.
All right. So here we are in this Toyota Highlander 2020, redesigned for the latest model year, and we still have a 3.5 liter V6 in this one. This produces 295 horsepower, 263 pound-feet of torque, going through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Jonathan, what do you got?
Well, it's also a V6, naturally aspirated, but this one's a little bit bigger at 3.8 liters, but you wouldn't know it from the power numbers because this one's also right there. 291 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. So it's virtually identical powertrains. And if you ask me, the power delivery was also just about equal in my books. I was perfectly happy. They've both got a little bit of a sport mode so you can sharpen it up, but they've also, I tend to default to econ mode and try and get a little bit of gas savings out of them while I'm driving. I really like the way the Telluride handles on the road. It's probably not as outright comfortable, it's not as soft, but it seems a little bit better planted in turns, and even on like long curves on the highway and stuff like that. It just feels more nicely planted and reassuring in that way, without being uncomfortable ever. It's like you go over bumps and it cushions them appropriately, so it's not like it's a jarring ride or anything to get that little bit of better handling.
No, I agree completely. And I think the Highlander, I would say it's more of a traditional SUV feel in terms of the handling. It does have a little bit of a body roll motion, especially when you're going through highway on-ramps, that sort of thing. Nothing that's unsettling or anything, but certainly I find that the Telluride handles a little bit more flat, a little bit more almost sedan-like, which might be a quality that people are looking for when they're shopping for in this large SUV segment. So in the Highlander, we've got the Platinum, which is the limited plus almost in terms of being the top of the line in the Highlander line, versus the Telluride is the SX trim, and so you've still got a couple of levels that you could rise up from the trim that we're looking at. But even as you do that, the pricing doesn't differentiate that much. If you get both of these vehicles at their top trims, I think you're looking at approximately $54,000.
The top trims both offer head-up display, like luxury leather on all the seats, and neither of them offers genuine wood trim. They both have kind of simulation wood trim, but it does add a little bit of pizzazz to the interior. The one feature that you might say is a standout in the Telluride is that you can get up to cooled seats in the back. In the Highlander, you can only get heated rear seats. They both have fantastic infotainment systems, I've got to say. Like, we've always loved the Kia one, but the Toyota has usually seemed to lag behind, where it just wasn't quite as quick and it looked a little bit dated, but in the Highlander, wow. And
I love the fact that you can use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto in a split screen with the car's functions on the side so that you can still access things like climate controls and the onboard radio. I also like the Highlander's panoramic sunroof a little bit more than the Telluride split design. But one thing I think is a standout feature, you don't really agree, Jonathan, is the Telluride's 3rd row USB port. You say that's not a big deal. I say a lot of families would think that if they're going to stick their 10-year-olds in the 3rd row because that's where they have to be and they want to give them a way to charge their iPads, that could be something that would make a difference in the buying process.
So I just think there's solutions to that it's not such a big deal if you've got multiple charging points.
If I was going to take one design standout feature in the new Highlander, I would say it's the center console in the front. It's got a really nice rolling action to the lid. You have a wireless charger that's tucked right underneath, easy to access, and it keeps the phone out of the way so that you're not tempted to pick it up and look at it every time a notification goes off. It's not as large as the old one where you could fit a larger handbag into it, which is sort of a shame, but I consider it more of a benefit in this layout than a drawback of losing that larger singular storage space.
Yeah, the Kia Telluride, it's got plenty of at-hand storage and cup holders. And it's even got a little extra compartment for something like a hand sanitizer bottle, which is very convenient these days. But I love the Highlander too, that it's got those horizontal trays for your phone or for extra stuff that are just like on the dash. It's kind of just like a neat addition, and they've decorated it nicely too with some nice textured liner, so it holds the phones in place, or it just kind of looks kind of neat, and it's a nice place to just toss something where it is very reachable.
Speaking of interior design, I really do like the layers of color that are in use here in the Highlander.
Yeah, the interior of the Telluride looks good, but it is all black with just the wood simulation trim in the middle of the dash and a bit of silvery plastic trim as well, which does break it up a little bit, but it's very black. But at least the headliner's a light color to brighten up the interior, and it does have the 2 sunroofs, so it adds some light in here, and it is a lovely interior.
One thing we do need to call out on the Telluride is that the dimensions of it are just overall slightly larger. But it doesn't feel larger necessarily while you have it on the road, and yet you have a little bit more interior space for passengers, a fair bit more interior space for cargo, and it does actually make a difference in terms of the usability in the back.
Yeah, but not only that, it's much easier to fold down the seats here in the Telluride. It's just kind of like one tug and they just kind of drop themselves, whereas the Highlander can be a little bit finicky. It's just odd that the practicality was just a slight miss on that front. Both of these vehicles have so much going for them. They're both going to be great family vehicles. If you only drive one, you'll never know what you're missing out on the other. And truly, even if you drove them back to back, you might be happy with one or the other for different reasons, but at the same time, I kind of know which one I would pick because it suits my preferences better. What about you?
Yeah, I think I have a favorite I'm leaning toward as well. Let's go talk it out.
All right. Well, that was pretty illuminating. We're seeing that both of them are really incredibly practical, comfortable vehicles that are going to be good for any family. So there's very little to pick them apart. But one of my favorite aspects of the Telluride was that it was a little bit bigger and easier to manage in terms of the practicality of folding seats down and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit wider means a little bit more interior space, a little bit more cargo space, and actually slightly better driving dynamics on the road. A little bit more of a sedan type feel in the handling as opposed to the Highlander's larger, more SUV type feel, which is typical for the segment, but the Telluride does stand out on that point.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a wash on most things in terms of value and general practicality, but just the slight edges that the Telluride has are enough to give it the win here.
Absolutely. For Driving.ca, I'm Stephanie Walcraft.
And I'm Jonathan Yarconi. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to get notified when we publish any video, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.